1. Morena and welcome from the capital of Aotearoa, Wellington. I'm sitting here with Sue McLean, and normally we do this over video call, but isn't it cool? We're sitting right beside each other in Wellington on the deck of the Greater Wellington Regional Council building, and you can see in the background some beautiful Wellington buildings. That's Cuba Street, and the fountain's just over the wall. We could look over. We could look over, but. Welcome to CIO YARN Live. Thank you very much for being on board. And we've got a little bit of a special one because Sue's no longer a CIO.
No, I'm an imposter.
As just recently. So we want to thank you. And also thank you to Bill Moses, who was in this time slot, who graciously moved to the next one because I initially understood this to be your last week of being a CIO. Therefore, that was a request. Could we get you into that time slot? But you haven't been a CIO for a whole month.
Yep, exactly. I'm now.
So Bill, it's not my fault.
Very much.
No, but as with always, could you please introduce yourself AFQY style so we can get to meet the person, and then we'll talk about business with our 3 questions around culture, technology, lesson, and closing remarks.
Sure. Kia ora. So, as you know, my name is Susan McLean, and I live over here in Makara on the west coast of Wellington. So Greater Wellington is important to me. So working for Greater Wellington as a regional council was a pretty sweet deal to get. I have was a CTO for 2.5 years at Greater Wellington and took them on a magnificent journey, which I've now handed over to my colleague Ross Lynch, and now I've picked up the reins of general manglement of corporate services, which has quite a large portfolio, which we won't have time to list all the things that it does.
That's all right. So that's the business side of it. Can we delve into the human side of it? So what are you into outside of work? Is it rugby, ballet, cross stitch, motocross? Like who's Sue outside of the thing?
Sorry to disappoint you.
That's right.
Yeah. So as I said, I live in Makara, which is a 30-acre plot, which has got a mountain bike track on it. So it's called Windburn.
Ooh.
And so it's got pretty high grade mountain bike tracks on it, most of which I can't actually ride. So it's about creating something for other people to use. I am a mum of 2 kids. One is currently in Slovakia at a campsite.
Wow.
And the other one is living in one of those 30 acres with 6 puppies. So I've got puppies if anyone wants one.
What type of dog?
Sheepdog, heading dog. Son's
you've got to be very fit to handle one of those.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I have a dog called Basil, who is the only reason why I work is so that Basil can continue living in the lifestyle that he's accustomed to. Is a wire-haired fox terrier.
Does he run around saying boom boom?
Pretty much, yeah. That was what he was named after. He's obnoxious as that one is too. And yeah, I've youngest of 6 kids, so I've had to learn how to be an extrovert to get fed. And yeah, just
enhance those survival techniques. Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. My brother-in-law is famously known for as a young teenager, sitting staring at his grandmother's dessert and then turning around and saying, "You going to eat that?"
Pretty much.
Take the food right out of your mouth. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Good to get to know you. And
Thank
of course, we had AFQY Wellington last night, and Sue has told me her nickname is the Mangler, and I thought it was publicly known. And when I said Sue has an AFQY nickname, but it was her own nickname before she got to AFQY, Sue the Mangler, and she just yelled out in front of everyone, "Oh, that was private!" And you should have heard everyone go just deadly silent at that point. But can we ask, what is the story behind the nickname? Because this is what AFQY is about.
You're the one that made it up.
What, me?
Absolutely.
I thought.
So I just refer to my managers as manglers. I want to take the pressure off them. They don't have to manage all the time. They can mangle. It's okay. It's safe to mangle.
How human is that?
I know, right? So
how human is that? I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. So I now know what a mangler is.
Yeah.
Oh,
just
cool.
A human manager.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that works really well with our first questions. We have 3 questions through the CIO YARN Live series that everyone gets to answer. And the first one is about culture. How do you actively create a culture that helps build belonging and team culture, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, along that space.
Well, for me, it's just being me and being human and bringing your whole human to work. Humans have emotions, they have feelings, they have shit going on at home. I just swore. And
it's all right, we'll beep it out.
Beep it out. Beep, 7-second delay. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
But just, understanding that there's stuff going on back at home, or you're waiting for a building consent and it's just had another question, so you've got to wait for another month. That's really frustrating. I'm going through that at the moment. So it's like, I don't have time at work to deal with these issues at home. You go to a meeting, you're constantly distracted. We've got people that have got family in Ukraine. We've got people that have got family going through cancer. Or they've just been victim of a building construction collapse and they've lost their life savings. It's just devastating. These people come to work every day to work, and so that we just have to recognise that and play to the strengths that you've got as a human and go, we've got your back, we'll listen to you, create a safe space, all that kind of stuff. So that's the first thing, is just recognise that these people are, in some cases, are paying to come to work. They're putting their kids in daycare. They're paying for the privilege to come and work with you. So just recognise that. Yeah,
I think that's really beautiful. I look back on, I got brought up on the don't speak unless you're spoken to system, and you can imagine it's quite the reverse of what you just described. And you turn up at work early, that's 5 minutes before 8:30, or even 5 minutes before 7:30, and head down, bum up and do your job. If you don't, you get a kick up the ass. Sorry, I just swore too. Beep, beep, beep. So yeah, I still find myself falling into that because I learned, or was programmed that way. You learn the behaviours of those that teach you, right? And that's good old school stuff. But what you have explained is quite good new school stuff, because the result, and I've seen it, the times I've been able to do it well, is that, and the times that it's been done for me, is that you respond so much better and you give so much more, and you are eager and enthusiastic to, rather than forced to. That would be my sort of summation of that scenario. Yeah, that's really cool. So we're going to come and work for you. We're going to come and hang out. We're going to come and hang out here at the funkiest,
the
coolest regional council in the country.
Absolutely. We've got some jobs going.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Do you want to be a developer?
I could do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Any developers out there? We're looking for some.
I can write hieroglyphics.
Exactly.
And I say that lovingly to developers, to recognise the amazingness that doing development is, because I can't do it. Well, I could if I tried, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, might need a little bit more experience for the role that you're talking about.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Well, that segues into tech beautifully. Yeah. So we like to ask a little bit about what you're doing at the moment. Obviously, the stuff you can talk about publicly, because this is public going to the world.
Yeah.
But because we're tech, it's almost like, what's the exciting, cool thing that you're working on? So what is the exciting, cool thing you're working on? And the cool
thing. One of the things that I do as a manager is hire really smart people. And so I've got a whole lot of really smart people that are currently working on this. We've talked about it a bit before, this wicked problem of how do we create an environmental platform, a data platform that we can ask questions to. And we've been talking about that question of, when can I teach my mokopuna to fish in the Porirua Harbour, as our benchmark, is when we can answer that question, then we've created something pretty special. So that's pretty cool. And what's cool about it is that we're not I don't have a big enough ego to go, I'm going to build a platform. We're actually copying it from somebody else. And we're working very closely with Environment Canterbury, also known as ECAN, with Doug Talbot, the CIO there, and looking at what they've built and making it work for both of our organisations, cool. Which in the end, the customer that benefits the most, and I hate using the word customer, but is the environment. So the environment benefits from the mahi that ECAN and Greater Wellington are doing together, which we've coined GCAN, and just working together on this, I guess it's like a digital twin, or we call it Sima Aotearoa, of water data for a start. That's where we're starting, and then building on the stack, I guess, of the environmental layers, so that we can really run some modelling through to say, if we did. So Porirua Harbour is a bit of a problem statement at the moment, with the sediment layers in there and the toxins underneath. So if you remove the sediment, the toxins become paramount. So we're looking at what can we do, how can we create a system that we can plug in some modelling. So if we did traditional planting or something else on the hills surrounding Porirua Harbour, what would that do? Or if we did more modern planting, does that speed the process up? Is that actually the best for long term? And our our partners and our community don't want a quick answer. They want a sustainable answer, a long-term answer, something that will be meaningful for generations to come, because this is an intergenerational problem that we're trying to solve. This is not an election cycle. This is a lot longer. So we're trying to build a system with a little s that gives us the opportunity to ask those really deep intergenerational questions.
Wow.
As I want my grandchildren, not that I'm encouraging my children to have kids, but anybody's grandchildren to look back at Greater Wellington in 2022 and say, what did they do about it? What did they do about the water quality? What did they do about air quality? What did they do about climate change? What did my ancestors do? And I want people to look back and see the names of the people that are in this project in particular, to say, oh, they actually did something pretty wicked.
That is cool, because if you think about it, your mokapuna's mokapuna, they might actually be at school studying what we did in this time frame about our climate and about our environment and all those questions. So it's easy for people to get wrapped up and dismiss stuff because there's a lot of hoopla about the likes of Greta Thunberg or anything. You can be contrarian about it, but the reality is this stuff needs to be done. It hasn't been done up until now, so it's almost like you're taking the hospital pass and taking the hit, but as you say, working through what will make it better for intergenerational change. And I love that statement that you made, that it's not about the next election term. It's about doing right by the planet, and in case doing right by the people that inhabit it, so that in time you can fish with your grandkids there. It's pretty serious stuff.
And it's humbling, and it's a privilege to be able to work on this type of mahi. And it doesn't work if you've got a big ego. And I think this is why projects like this have failed in the past. And I'm probably going to offend a few people, but big egos don't deliver projects well. You have to collaborate. I couldn't have thought of a better council to work with than ECAM. They're just so open to collaboration with us, which is just magnificent. To the point where we have their people sitting in here in our building in another city, just working on it. It's just
that is
really quite a different way of looking at it.
Well, I was going to use the C word, collaboration, and open up that discussion. So I think it's amazing because a good AFQY, Joanne Fair, who's been on before, and she's talked about a friend of hers, another Kiwi, who did a whole PhD about how Kiwis don't collaborate well. So we're very competitive. Probably why we're good at all these sports from such a small population, or climbing mountains and breaking atoms and doing stuff. But as a result, we're not so good at collaborating. And that's why we have such a DIY culture, because I can do it myself. Don't need you. But what you're doing is collaborating and working with another organization, as you say. So I think it's a beautiful example, and may there be many more if you're listening out there. So what if someone come along and said, hey, we're Dunedin Regional Council, my hometown.
Oh yeah.
And because the Wellington weather is just right for it. And my little that's what my wife says. She says, oh, you met with some big tough southern man, and you're and up in Auckland even. I'll be putting my hat on. But yes.
So Otago Regional Council is dear to my heart because I went to school in Dunedin. So they're welcome. And so is Environmental Southland. So I was born in the Catlins. So
the Catlins.
Deep south southern girl.
Beautiful part of the country. Most people won't even know the name, but it's a really amazing piece of country.
McLean Falls.
Oh yeah, I see on your LinkedIn profile that.
So there you go.
I didn't know where it was, but
that's my grandfather's brother. So that's the whole point of it, is creating something that anyone can tap into. I really feel for the smaller regions and districts that have the same wicked problem that we have in large catchments like Greater Wellington and Canterbury, but they don't have the big IT teams. Some of them have only got less than 10, and they're still trying to solve the same problems that we've got with 50 to 70 people on our staff. And that's because of the catchments and the rates that they can only pull so much money from the ratepayers. So I think it's a privilege that we've got so many people here in our catchment and in our region, that we can build something that can be used across New Zealand and benefits all of New Zealand, regardless of where you live.
That's really that is pretty smart thinking. And I don't know a lot about Three Waters, but but what my point is that to me it looks like the aim is to join forces to achieve the success again, because there's a piece of infrastructure that has been probably ravaged by terms of people wanting to get voted in, and therefore they didn't spend the money that would get them voted out, and now we have this massive problem with our water infrastructure. Is that a pretty blunt but fair?
Yeah, I think it's trying to fix
Maybe
that intergenerational thing and make it less about council issues and less about terms of management and long-term collaboration. So it's
again taking the egos
so
out.
early days, but
Oh, we've got a helicopter. That's the Westpac rescue helicopter. Not quite flying over Mount Vic. Where's Mount Vic? Is Mount Vic that way? That way. Yes. Someone's going to be saved. But yeah, so I put it out there cheekily as a bit of a discussion starter, but the reality is, as you just highlighted something I wasn't aware of, that might be a range of organisations that could be like, actually it would work for us as well, and that's extended collaboration.
If you think about the way that we're funded in regional councils and in city councils, it's based on ratepayers. So in Greater Wellington there's 200,000 or 300,000, and West Coast there's about 6,000. So just imagine what pots of money you have to do to be able to solve environmental issues with those rates. So it's grossly unfair in that aspect.
So is the funding model not fit the reality of the job at hand?
I won't comment on that because I'll probably get fired. But
okay, sorry.
But the funding, I mean, I think that's where central government are trying to resolve through with the Three Waters, is just to try and make that a little bit more fairer across the entities. And but who knows until we get through all that discussion.
And a little shout out for Claire Callahan, and who I met in the office on the way sitting here. So aside from this project, what other projects or team are you happy you were able to share? Give a bit of kudos to the team.
Oh, look, it's just.
Or have we hit the point where you can't talk about it anymore?
I think when I remember when I was back in IRD days, actually in 2013, the saying was data is the new water. Data is still the new water. It's still the problem that we need to solve. And I think egos is what's stopping us from actually getting a really good New Zealand-wide understanding of the data that we need in order to make some really informed decisions. Like I said, we need to be able to do predictive data modelling, and it's really hard to do it with disparate bits of data and people holding on to it.
Well, if I go back to my family, because AFQY is all about people, so mum's still working in tech, and my brother's working in tech, and obviously still, because he's only a couple of years older than me. But I remember when he was going through university, the arguing, like my mother and my brother argued about what line of COBOL or whatever it was, more than me and him argued about, I don't know, who had the seat in front of the TV. So that ego subject, I think, has actually got some huge reality in tech, because it's a little bit about it's almost like, okay, me and my father talking about rugby. Who should be in the front row? No, yes. We're both posturing for the right answer, you know, to be the All Blacks coach, the armchair All Blacks coach, right? So and I think it's human nature anywhere you go. But I think it's a good subject to be starting to broach, because people can be a bit more self-aware and think, let's think about the problem we're trying to solve, rather than whether I get to own the acclaim, because it's not about owning the acclaim or being right. It's about getting the job done.
The biggest challenge I get is, who decided that you should fix this problem, right? And it's especially when somebody else wants to fix it themselves, and I just invite them in. So come and join and help us solve this problem together as a team, and don't try and stand something up, afterwards. But we've looked across the bow to make sure that we weren't offending anybody already doing stuff. The problem is people don't tell anyone what they're doing, and as we went further down our mahi and starting to tell people about what we're doing, because I'm very collaborative and communicative about what we're trying to achieve, other people lifted their heads above the parapet and said, "Oh, we're doing that too." I mean, well, tell everyone. It's keeping this close to your chest is not helpful. And it just turns out there's a lot of synergies that a lot of people are trying to solve this problem. So there's a flip side to that, though, is that if you try to build one big system, that you end up having this monolithic, multi-year project, which is doomed to failure. So we're starting small, we're starting iteratively, we're using agile practices, agile mindsets, and just building a feature backlog and building a solution that can pivot and change and grow and do what it needs to do.
I like it. Sounds good. So with that, shall we have a look at the lesson? So of our 3 questions, we always like to ask the final one, and we actually got time for another one, so we'll have some more about the digital twin.
Yeah.
But let's get the lesson one in there. So this is usually a question about what have you experienced that if you were able to tell yourself 20 years ago, what would that lesson be that you'd share with everybody?
Apart from don't marry that guy, and the second time, no. The thing I got this question ready, and it is, as a manager / leader, you don't actually have to have all the answers. It's hiring the talent and then asking them the questions and working on the answer together. And I thought for the longest time in my career, and it only really hit home about 10 years ago, that I didn't have to have all the answers and didn't have to come up with everything. And that's when I stopped being this geeky technologist and actually started hiring really talented people. And then all of a sudden in a room, you've got 6 people on your leadership team that are your talent. And that's much better than one mind trying to come up with an answer, because you're not always right, believe it or not. I know, right?
I know.
Yeah. Hey. And I've been challenged so many times. My ICT leadership team here at Greater Wellington were the best at challenging what I would want to do or thought to do. They would gently coach me into the direction that I should have gone. And I forgive them for that. It's hard on your ego and you go, oh, but I thought my idea was really cool. But then
there we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Exactly what you've been talking about. Letting that go.
Letting the ego go was probably the hardest thing, and the best thing for my career, because I sleep better at night now because I know I've got a problem shared with multiple talents.
There's 2 lessons in that for you. So the first one was one that you shared, and the second one was that letting go of the ego when you're being challenged is not easy. So no one said it would be easy, but still we ask you to think about it and be self-aware, because as you say, 7 minds, because it's 6 of the team plus yourself, 7 minds collaborating together achieves a better outcome.
It does.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Ka-pai.
Yeah. So hey, we actually have 7 whole minutes. We're on time. Maybe it's because we're in Wellington. Maybe it's the freezing cold weather.
Cold and you're talking faster. That's what it is.
I'm talking faster. But coming back to we'll call it a digital twin. We'll start getting people used to that term. If you haven't been hearing about digital twins, they were just coming up, and then the next thing we had COVID, and we had a little bit of a pivot. So there's 2 sort of main digital twins that you hear people talk about, but they all meld together. And the first one is a 3D digital representation or virtual representation of a physical asset, like maybe the building. But then over COVID, supply chains. So supply chains aren't so much about buildings and physical assets, but they're about supply chain and process. Will those bananas arrive to be on the shelves? Or actually, toilet paper is the right one to say, although I think it's manufactured here in New Zealand, but will there be toilet paper on the shelves? If not, how do we get toilet paper from another source? And this is the simulation aspect.
Maybe jib sheet.
Jib.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
That's a good
Okay.
current problem statement. Any renovator out there? Yeah,
so when we're looking at that question of when can I teach my mokopuna how to fish in the Parirua Harbour, what that breaks down to is the project that Sue's working on. And if I give a little sort of overview, my version, so that you can then go change. But if you imagine the harbour, and there's a range of problems with it, the ecology of it. So if you put a bunch of sensors in that read different things, then you've got those sensors feeding data in, and you can measure and monitor. And with that, you can start simulating, as Sue mentioned. If we do this type of planting, and we've got the data of what that achieves, or if we do this type of planting, and the data that achieves, how will it affect? So if you imagine this is the graph, and where's my hand? Here's all the poison and sediment here, and we've got to reduce it. So if we do this type of planting, it'll bring it down to here. If we do this type of planting as well, it'll bring it down to here, and that will take 20 years.
Yeah.
So the idea is that with the digital twin, you can simulate what will happen in real life using the data and predictive analytics and a range of tools. We're starting to get into the AI discussion. But the idea is you can simulate all these different options. If I did this, what would happen? If I did this, what would happen? So
I think the key thing in there is we can engage with iwi in that conversation and ask them their opinion, their ideas, because it's their environment. So we need to really understand more traditional ways of managing the environment, because it was done. I won't get into too much of the politics, but it just seems like a bit of a no-brainer to me that you would have this opportunity to do the data modelling based on different opinions, and in some cases it might take longer but be more sustainable for the long-term intergenerational Aotearoa.
And there's another aspect, is the ability that these tools can help bridge the gap between, if we have the tech world where we're huge amounts of tech, huge amounts of data, numbers, etc., and then you have, if we use the term business or non-tech or people or iwi, but the people that don't live in the world of databases and don't live in the world of numbers and technology. And this is the point, is that with a digital twin, it can combine all those complex data feeds to tell a story that is understandable, such as, when can my mokopuna fish in the Porirua, when can I teach my mokopuna how to fish in the Porirua Harbour? So it's the age-old thing of tech and business not actually being able to connect or communicate in a way that they're both on the same page. We can use this in the middle to help bridge that gap.
Yeah, because it's actually not about the digital, it's not about the technology, it's about getting more meaningful questions into that data.
Yes. Yeah. And imagine sitting there with screeds of numbers and whatnot and saying, what about this? And that other person who's not able to deal with that, I don't know. But you can, with the digital twin, you can turn the context of that discussion into something that they can understand, and therefore we get there.
Yeah.
So, is there a number for the answer at the moment, or is that 20 years just a throwaway number that gives an indication?
Is there a number? I don't know yet until we get in there. What we are incentivized at the moment to do is measure targets. So measure E. coli levels, nitrate levels, NCAP levels. It's all very target based from our own central government, from our own environment ministry. And so that's all we're ever measured on. Okay. Just have you met that target, as opposed to long term more.
So is there the ability to also
questions.
help educate them and help them write policy?
That's why we're doing this, right?
All right.
Yeah. So just tag them. We'll be right. Okay. We'll be all fixed.
Yep.
Yeah.
So who's that? The Ministry for
the Environment.
Ministry of the Environment.
Central Government.
And where are they from here? They're back that way towards the beehive?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. They're all over the place. They're all over New Zealand, as they should be.
Okay.
Lovely, great organisation. But again, it's just our legislation is probably, I'm not a policy person at all, but it's just we're not incentivized for long-term intergenerational outcomes.
And that has been so I've just got a little video that I'm cooking up around the Auckland Harbour Bridge and the Auckland Underground tube stations that were designed in the 60s, and the story's already there. It's all written out about how it was shot down because of the cost. And the good old Kiwi, we won't need that. We won't need 8 lanes on the Auckland Harbour Bridge. We'll just build 4. That will work. But with a digital twin, they could have simulated what would happen. But of course, they didn't have digital twins in 1960. But we have digital twins in 2022, and therefore we can use this as a tool not only for you to be able to help other councils and collaborate and achieve the same thing across the country, but also to be able to provide the right information to the policy writers so that they can change the policy they write to be more fitting to solving the intergenerational problem. Yeah. Whew. Did I even understand what I just said?
I don't know.
I did. I think I hope it. But hey, we're just having up on the 9:30, so we will say ka kite ana to everybody out there. I'll just give you a minute to think for your closing remarks. So this is think of your closing remarks that you'd like to share with everybody. And I'll just do a quick little summary. So sitting here with Sue McLean, who has just retired from being a CIO to take on the role that supports the CIO. And we're sitting here in Greater Wellington Regional Council on the deck. You can see a little bit of Cuba Street Mall behind us. And we're talking about culture. And Sue's point was just being human, understanding that people come to work with their life worries because we all have them. So if we have ours, just to understand that everyone else has theirs, and being human about how we look after each other. Technology, we've talked extensively around the digital twin that's being built around being able to understand intergenerational issues with the environment and how best to fix them, and use that to simulate how best to fix them. And the lesson is to be able to let go. So let go of your ego so that you can enable the team, or let the team, and this comes up a little bit in different ways. I think a couple of other people have raised it, and I always chuckle because I'm struggling and achieving and struggling at the same time, depending on what it is, myself as the AFQY team grows. And sometimes my little summation is I fear it to begin with, and then when the result comes back, which is way better than I would have achieved, you're blown away and you're like, oh, okay, now
Yeah.
Here, have it, take it.
Yeah.
So it's quite a exciting thing when it happens. And that sort of brings us to the point of closing remarks. So what would you like to share with everyone as your closing remarks?
I think working for Greater Wellington, if you do go onto our website, a lot of our culture is around listening. So we listen to the forests, we listen to the rivers, we listen to what the environment's telling us and make our response and our long-term plan to what we're hearing. And I think as a manager, you must also do that. Listen to what you're hearing in the market and the people and the surveys that you may do, just in the daily conversations you have with people. Just take more time to listen and less time of talking, even though we've just been talking.
Yes, I sometimes forget I've got 2 ears and 1 mouth and should use them in that ratio. So look, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your input. Amazing insights, and it's been a pleasure to be here on the deck with you. So we will hear more about this soon. And the last thing we'll say is July 28th, we're going to have the AFQY Digital Twin event, and you will be able to come and hear more in detail from Sue and possibly others in her collaboration around when we'll be able to teach my Mokapuna how to fish in the Porirua Harbour using digital twins, as you've heard, to be collaborative and enable this intergenerational change.
Sure.
Thank you. And with that, we'll say